Welcome everyone. Thank you for tuning in. You're listening to The Account, bringing you today's news update for day 295 of the war in Ukraine. Today we had several articles based on an interview with the Ukrainian Commander-in-Chief, Valery Zaluzhny, discussing, among other things, a potential new attack on Ukraine by Russia and the Ukrainian need for weapons. We will go over those articles first and after take a look at the situation inside Ukraine, the occupied territories and international developments. But as usual, we will begin with the flashpoints along the front. But before we go over them, I just wanted to mention that the Ukrainska Pravda article I mentioned the other day has now also been released in English. It is titled, Sinking the Moskva, Previously Undisclosed Details, How the Ukrainian Neptune Destroyed the Flagship of the Russian Fleet. I provided the link in the description. Novoselivsk. Reports indicate Ukraine regained control over the destroyed settlement. Vorgonzo reports about fighting in the vicinity. Crimea. Ukrainian artillery has targeted the P-66 highway near Stara Krasnyanka in an attempt to cut Russian supply lines and isolate the city. This is significant as Ukraine now has fire control over all supply lines into Crimea. Russian artillery fired at Pischane today, indicating Ukrainian presence. It is also reported that near Sidlivka, Ukrainian forces managed to get a bridgehead over the Krasna River. Oleksiy Romov, deputy head of the main operative directorate of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, mentioned in his briefing a 1.5-kilometer advance of Ukrainian units near Dibrova. Bakhmut. Heavy battles for the city continue, with Russian artillery shelling targets all around Bakhmut. Wagner units are fighting in the eastern parts of the Bakhmut industrial zone and on the outskirts of the city. Around Opytne, Wagner is attempting to break through the defensive lines of the Ukrainian defenders, pro-Russian accounts wrote today. This contradicts Wagner's claim that they control 90% of the settlement. Opytne is currently seeing the fiercest fighting along the front. A video shared on social media shows heavy fighting in November. Russia's claimed gains around Solidar have so far not been visually confirmed, and recent reports dispute them. The General Staff of Ukraine again reported shelling of positions in Kudyumivka and Ozaryanivka, indicating Ukraine still has a presence in the settlements. Maryinka. The fighting continues. The situation here is increasingly being called a meat grinder as well. A video of a Russian tank supported by infantry indicates Russia was either pushed back or their earlier claims were simply false. Once again, Ukraine reported strikes in Tokmak, Polohi and Berdyansk. Recently, we have seen daily attacks on logistic hubs of the Russian army and command posts in this area. Further strikes were reported in the occupied Kherson Oblast, where the cities of Skadovsk and Zaliznyi Port were hit. A video shared on social media shows the aftermath of the strike on Zaliznyi Port, where a hotel that housed FSB personnel was destroyed. Another strike was reported in Luhansk Oblast, where an ammunition depot in the city of Irmino was destroyed. Videos shared on social media show a massive fireball, and secondary explosions can be heard.
Ебать! Блядь! О, это... Ебать! Ой-ой-ой-ой-ой-ой! ебать. Ой-ой-ой-ой-ой-ой. Бля, бля. А? Да нормально, вот там вообще.
Russia, on the other hand, released a video showing the destruction of an S-300 air defense system by loitering munition in the Kherson region. It should, however, be pointed out that the system was already destroyed, as you can see on the video. And now the articles and interviews discussing a potential new attack on Ukraine. General Valery Zaluzhny, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, has given an exclusive interview to The Economist. In it, they discussed his views on the war, the situation in Ukraine, and what Russia might be planning. According to Zaluzhny, the biggest issue Ukraine is currently facing is a lack of weapons. We have enough people, and I can clearly see what I have. I have enough. I don't need hundreds of thousands more. We need tanks. We need armored vehicles, infantry fighting vehicles, and we need ammunition, Zaluzhny said. He went on to say, the Russians are preparing some 200,000 fresh troops. I have no doubt they will have another go at Kyiv, adding that Russia has a reserve of 1.2 to 1.5 million people. According to him, Russia has the option to launch an attack from Donbas in the east, from the south, or from Belarus in the north of Ukraine. Zaluzhny further added that Ukraine is preparing a new major offensive. However, the military has to deal with limited resources, which will make it very difficult to conduct large-scale military operations. He also stated Ukraine will need 300 tanks, about 700 infantry fighting vehicles, and 500 howitzers to liberate all territories occupied by Russia since the beginning of the full-scale invasion on February 24th. Moving on to the situation inside Ukraine. President Zelenskyy is convinced that Russian President Vladimir Putin will not be able to win the war and should consider withdrawing the troops from Ukraine. He said in an interview with The Economist, the sooner the war ends, and if Russia admits that starting the war was a tragic mistake, the longer the Russian president will save his life and the lives of those around him. Today, Russia again massively shelled the city of Kherson, targeting the Oblast Military Administration building and the city center. 2 civilians were reportedly killed in the attack. According to local residents, there have been several explosions in the city in the morning. Judging by the photos posted on social media, the reason for at least some of them is artillery strikes on residential areas. The shelling also targeted and destroyed critical infrastructure, effectively cutting Kherson off from the power grid. And now the latest out of the occupied territories. Russian occupation authorities in Crimea are preparing to repel the attacks of the Ukrainian armed forces. They have begun mining the area, digging trenches, and laying so-called dragon's teeth. This was reported by the main Directorate of Intelligence of the Ministry of Defense. And finally, the international developments. The Pentagon plans to more than double the number of Ukrainian troops trained at the US Army base in Grafenwöhr, Germany. US instructors will be able to train a battalion of Ukrainian soldiers, between 600 and 800 people, every month starting early next year, according to sources. The US is considering providing Ukraine with advanced electronic equipment that turns unguided aerial munitions into smart bombs capable of hitting Russian military positions with a high degree of accuracy. While it can be attached to a variety of systems, it was not specified which Ukrainian weapon systems would be augmented with the smart bomb kits. In its latest assessment, the Institute for the Study of War writes that President Vladimir Putin has cancelled his annual message to the Federal Assembly, citing an inability to cope with mounting criticism amid setbacks in Russia's war against Ukraine. Analysts say Putin's decision to cancel the message stems from his lack of confidence in his ability to shape Russia's information space amid mounting criticism of his wartime decisions. A representative of the Center for Research of Trophy and Advanced Weapons and Military Equipment stated that Russian UAVs are capable of operating in any weather conditions. According to experts, Russian UAVs have been seen utilizing special devices that can heat up the external sensors. Russia has released a video of an intercontinental ballistic missile being loaded into a launch silo days after reports surfaced that the US is preparing to send an advanced Patriot air defense system to Ukraine. Russia initially said in response that it would wait for official confirmation before reacting, and then said that it would consider the Patriot missile system a legitimate target. And now the daily intelligence update by the UK Ministry of Defence. On December 3rd, Belarus played a key enabling role in Russia's assault towards Kyiv from February 24, 2022. However, the exercising Belarusian troops and Russian units are currently unlikely to constitute a force capable of conducting a successful new assault into northern Ukraine. And to wrap up the report, the evening update by the General Staff of Ukraine. The enemy continues to focus its efforts on conducting offensive actions in the Bakhmut and Avdiivka areas. He is trying to improve the tactical position in the Liman direction, and in the Kupiansk and Zaporizhia areas he is building up troops. In other directions, the enemy is concentrating its efforts on restraining the actions of units of the defense forces of Ukraine, shelling the positions of our troops and civilian objects along the contact line. The enemy continues to suffer losses. Thus, on December 13th, in the areas of Tokmak, Polohi, and Berdyansk in the Zaporizhia region, the defense forces destroyed 2 enemy ammunition depots, 2 artillery systems with ammunition, as well as 6 units of military equipment of various types. More than 200 enemy servicemen were injured. In connection with the overflowing of medical facilities and morgues in the city of Melitopol, the Russian invaders are transporting corpses and evacuating wounded servicemen to the temporarily occupied Crimea. In order to replenish the current losses, the invaders are forced to supplement the operational tactical command level with officers in the reserves and even retired officers. They are sent to the areas of hostilities. And that's it for today's news update. If you're interested in certain topics and want to read up on them, I included the links in the description as usual. Once again, thank you for tuning in, and have a great day. You were listening to The Account. Slava Ukraini.